Okay, so we're going to practice question number 1. It says purple hybrid crossed with another purple hybrid. Okay, we designated that we would use capital P for what trait? The dominant trait, and that dominant trait is purple. And we use a lowercase p to represent the white trait, which is the recessive trait. How come we use the letter P for both the purple and the white? Yes?
Because it was kind of like the same gene, how one's dominant and one's recessive.
Exactly. We're talking about the same gene, the same position on a chromosome. So that's why we're going to use the same letter. Okay? And we use the capital P to represent the dominant trait and the lowercase to represent the white trait. But it's the same gene. The only difference would be, think back to protein synthesis. Okay? The letters that code for this purple flower color, if there is a change in the lettering, then you end up making a protein, a pigment, that isn't purple, it's white. Okay? Now, I heard a question that how do I know if it's big P, little p, or big P, little p? A hybrid means that you don't show both of the dominant traits and you don't show both of the recessive, but instead you're one dominant trait and you're one recessive trait. You're a hybrid, meaning you're a mixture of the two. The way you get a hybrid is when you cross a purebred dominant with a purebred recessive. Now we have some really fancy words, and you're going to be taking notes on this later, but we have some fancy terms. Remember, we're talking about a homologous pair, and in order to be big P, you got the big P from one parent and the other big P from the other parent. So, to be showing big P, this is called homozygous dominant. Now, you understand dominant, right?
Yes.
Homo means same, and zygous from zygote. Okay, what is a zygote? A zygote is a fertilized egg. Excellent. Maybe you should write, when I'm writing things down, maybe you should add this to that left-hand page, page 21. Okay, homo means same. So in your zygote, in your fertilized egg, the two genes for flower color in big P, pig P are the same. So we call that homozygous dominant. Another name for homozygous dominant is purebred. Or sometimes you'll see it called true breeding. Meaning it's always going to give you purple flowers. If you're carrying big P, you can only donate to your offspring purple flowers. Are we okay so far? Okay, if you're little p, you're also homozygous. But in this case, you're not homozygous dominant, you're homozygous recessive. Meaning, you're still true breeding, you're a purebred, but for the recessive trait. We have another term that also means hybrid, and that term is heterozygous. And do you know what hetero means? Different. Okay? Hetero means different. So in a heterozygous individual, you have one dominant trait and one recessive. And heterozygous is the same as hybrid. Okay? So now you've learned some new vocabulary terms today, right? Homozygous, heterozygous. Okay? Going back to our original problem, we want to take a purple hybrid with a purple hybrid. So what letters do I use for a hybrid? Big P, little p, crossed with another big P, little p. Those are your parents. Okay? We separate our gametes because this parent cells went through the process of meiosis, and they can produce gametes that have the big P trait or the little p trait. So these top boxes and the side boxes represent our gametes, our sex cells. So if this is the egg from mom, and that's the sperm from dad, see? If this egg is fertilized by this sperm, then these squares down here represent your offspring. And that's how we fill in the boxes. Big P, little p, big P, little p, little p, little p. But at this point, you're still not done. Right? You've done the Punnett square, but now you got to tell me what the results are. So, 1/4 or 25% big P, big P. 1/2 or 50% big P, little p. And 1/4 or 25% little p, little p. In words, big P would be homozygous dominant. Big P, little p would be heterozygous. And little p would be homozygous recessive. Okay, now here comes another vocabulary word. Okay? These letters refer to the genes that individual carries, right? They carry 2 little p genes. It refers to the types of genes that are in that individual. So we call this its genotype. It's easy to remember that word when you think of it as being the types of genes. But giving the genotypes doesn't really tell you what the flowers are going to look like. Okay, so that's a new vocabulary word, genotype. It is the phenotype that tells you what you're going to see. And so if I look at this data here, what am I going to see when I cross these types of flowers? Well, what is big P going to look like? Purple. What's big P, little p going to look like? Purple. So what percentage of the time am I likely to get purple flowers? 75% of the time I'm going to get purple flowers. And what does little p look like? White. So only about 25% of the time I'm going to get white. Now, Punnett squares are great, but it's a prediction. And are predictions always exact? No. So if I take and I plant 4 seeds from a cross between these two parents, am I going to get 3 purples and 1 white exactly? No. But if I plant 3,000 seeds, what is the ratio likely to be? It's likely to be 75% purple and 25% white. So think about our probability lab. When you flipped your coin 10 times, you didn't automatically get 50-50. But when you flipped your coin 50 times, you might have gotten 49 and 51. And when we looked at our class data, we got really close to 50-50. So the higher the number of events, the more likely you are to see that the probabilities work out. All right? You want to do another one?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the second problem?
Hybrid purple is purebred white.
Okay, hybrid purple.
And purebred white.
So I don't really need to say hybrid purple because I know if it's a hybrid, it's going to be purple.
No.
And if I said a purebred,
Purebred white.
did I give you guys a different one for number 2?
Number 2 is cross hybrid purple and then purple purebred.
Okay, so I wrote it. I didn't make a record of what I gave you guys compared to what I gave 5th and 6th. Okay, because I saved what I wrote. So I gave you one hybrid purple with a purebred white and hybrid purple with a purebred purple, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the numbering on your paper doesn't matter. We'll just do purebred purple right now. Okay, first of all, when you look at a plant or a person, you're not going to be able to see the DNA inside of their cells. You can see only how they look. So do we see genotypes or phenotypes? We see phenotypes. So these flowers, the fact that they're purple, I should be writing in purple. These flowers, the fact that they're purple, that's their phenotype. By me saying that they're hybrid, you know the genotype, right? Did you get that genotype correct on your paper? That's the first step, is you got to get the genotypes right. Then you set up your Punnett square. This is where you separate your traits. Now you've got the gametes that each parent can produce. Now we start putting our gametes in fertilization, fertilizing, and creating offspring. Is that what your Punnett square looked like, basically? The last step is reporting your genotype results. And then your phenotypes. 100% of these flowers produced are purple. Okay. All right. Next. The third problem was
Purple hybrid and then white purebred.
a hybrid with a white. Now, if it doesn't say purebred white, do you really need to have the word purebred white in there? No. How come? How come I don't really need to tell you it's a purebred white? How many ways can you get white flowers?
Only white.
Only one way. Brennan, what did you want to say? The only way you can get the white flower is 2 recessives. So those are your 2 parents. This one gives us 50% hybrid or heterozygous and 50% homozygous recessive. And in otherwise 50% purple and 50% white. If you cross 2 white flowers with each other, what are you going to get? Only white flowers. Because they only have recessive traits to donate to their offspring. Okay? Now, the only way to know if you really understand this is for me to give you a practice problem for you to practice as a quiz. Dylan? Make something up, okay? I'm just going to make something up. I want to see if you can do this all on your own. Squeeze it in wherever you can. I'm going to give you a new trait. So in peas, green seeds are dominant to yellow. Okay? I would first like you to write down the homozygous dominant genotype. Then I'd like you to write down the homozygous recessive genotype and then the heterozygous genotype. Now I'm talking about a green trait. So I'll give you one hint. Use G. So if you were watching at home, you would pause the video and try this. All right, how'd you do? So, homozygous dominant, did you get it? Big G, big G? Homozygous recessive, little g, little g. You have to use G's because it's the same trait. Heterozygous, big G, little g. Okay? Okay, we're talking about one gene, so that's why we stick with the same letters. Okay, so sticking with those G's, I would like you to cross a hybrid green with a yellow pea plant. Hybrid green with a yellow pea. All right, hybrid green crossed with a yellow. These are your two parents. Did you get it?
Yes.
So we're 50%, 50% green, and 50% yellow. All right? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. These can get really complicated. What if I told you that I had a plant, and I don't know what its genotype is, but I know, I don't know what the plant's genotype is, but I know that it has one parent that was green and one parent that was yellow. I don't know what the plant's genotype is, but I can see that it has green peas. Can you figure out what its genotype is? I know that I crossed a green parent with a yellow parent. And I got an offspring that was green. What's its genotype? Well, can we figure out what is the yellow parent's genotype? Has to be little g, little g. What are my options for the other parent?
Big G, little g, and big G, big G.
Great. Now, This individual, this offspring is green. Does it matter what the genotype was for the green parent? For this offspring? Does it matter if the parent was big G or big G little g?
Yes. If it was big G, little G, then you have little G.
Okay. What gamete could the yellow parent give?
Little G.
This yellow parent could only give a little g gamete. The other parent, the green parent, depending upon what its genotype was, it could have given a big G or a little g, right? But we know which gamete it gave.
Big G, big G.
It doesn't give two, right? It only gave one. And why do we know it had to have given a big G? Because it's green. So genetics problems can get really fun. Here's the limitation. This is just looking at a cross that is only determined by one gene. These traits are only looking at one gene. Most of our genes in our body, though, and in most organisms, are determined by multiple genes together. So Mendel was lucky in that he picked 7 traits that were only determined by one gene. And so they worked out really simply. So if I gave you a quiz on this like tomorrow, Friday, you're going to be fine. Okay? I can put up onto Google Classroom some more practice problems for you. You do them if you want to. You don't have to. You do what you need to do. And I've never done this before. Usually I make students work all these Punnett squares. But, if you've got it, you've got it. Look through them. Test yourself. Okay? Now, they get a lot more complicated than this. This is the simplest.
What's a complicated
Okay?
one?
When we start getting into the other ways that genetics work, like incomplete dominance, codominance, and we are going to be talking about those other patterns of genetics, okay? Because it isn't always just as simple as this, dominant versus recessive, okay? All right, so I will be posting this on my YouTube channel, Zitterkoff Science, and I will share the link to my YouTube channel so that you can go and see the videos that I have. You can scroll through all the videos that I have and see that I have other ones from years previous with more genetics problems worked out. But please make sure that you subscribe to my channel and that you like it. Not that I'm ever going to get 1 million followers though, right? It isn't going to happen.